in association with the France 24 observers. And we can say good evening to James Creedon. Good to see you, James.
Hello.
First up, you've been looking at what appears to be a Russian-generated fake news emerging from East Ukraine. The claim is that 3 were killed in an explosion. Separatists are pinning that explosion on Kiev.
That's right, and it made headlines in various media such as the Jerusalem Post here. This claim, separatists in East Ukraine accuse Kiev over blast that killed 3 people, with supposedly the cause of that blast being an improvised explosive device. And you can see here in one media that has kind of picked apart the evidence, or so-called evidence in that regard. This is glasnost.gon.org, which looks into Russian disinformation. Again, that's a headline: car blasted on Donetsk Gorvalka highway, 3 casualties reported. Now, that was released by the Donetsk news agency, so an official source in these separatist republics in the east. Now, if you look at the car that was supposedly caught up in this explosion being blamed on Kiev, a couple of things should become apparent that would indicate that there's something fishy about it. First of all, there's no registration plate there, and you would expect that if a car was caught up in an explosion like that, that the registration plate would be intact. Indeed, the windows are blown out of that vehicle as well, which went up in flames, but there's no trace or evidence of glass or shattered glass on the ground. So that's another factor that might lead one to think that there's something up. And indeed, at the back of the vehicle as well, you can see here that there is also no registration plate. So neither at the front nor the rear of the vehicle. So no shattered glass, despite the vehicle being without any windows. No registration numbers. So there are two factors that would indicate that there's something up. And also a third piece of, evidence that would indicate that something is up. These very neat bullet holes in the car that were being described as being as a result of shrapnel. Now, shrapnel does not create very clear, neat, precise bullet holes like that. And in the body of this text, a more likely explanation is that somebody shot the vehicle with a machine gun to make it look like shrapnel had caused that damage. So there are quite a few factors there that would lead one to think that there's something up. And in images that we won't show you, Delano, or viewers, because they're a little bit too grisly, there were 2 bodies in that vehicle. Now, in one of the bodies, you can see a skull, which has basically the skull is sawn in half. They're grisly images, hence why we're not showing them to you. But a skull sawn in half would more than likely indicate that this body had been retrieved from, or had gone through an autopsy or medical procedure, so was possibly retrieved from a morgue. This is not the way in which a body that had been caught up in an explosion like that would appear. The skull was clearly sawn in half with a bullet wound. So there are much more likely explanations for that than somebody being caught up in this explosion. Now, two further pieces of information that are worth noting. That explosion was picked up by two English speakers who are in this geographical location at the moment. One by the name of Patrick Lancaster, who videos the accident in citizen journalism style, pointing out the bullet holes, saying that they're as a result of shrapnel, basically buying into the official version of events. And you also have this second Twitter user here, Dean O'Brien, reporting from the front and basically parroting everything as if it's fact. So giving further, I suppose, oxygen to what is highly likely to be a false flag event.
Now, this, James, is part of a broader phenomenon of crudely made fake videos. What other examples have you seen?
Well, there are several others that have been pointed out, and there's an article on the France 24 website here in French, but also available soon in English. The low-cost, I suppose, sloppy disinformation that is being put out by Moscow, and because in fact a lot of it is very easy to pick apart. Now, this is Elliot Higgins, the founder of Bellingcat, which is a fact-checking media. Now, here what you see is a video that was put out there by, again, Donetsk's People's Republic, and that video, it claims to show attempts by Polish speakers, in fact, acting, one can presume, again, on behalf of, or at least against Russia, attempting to sabotage tanks. Now, we don't have time to go through all the details in that video, but let's just say it's a video that claims to show attempts to sabotage Russian tanks. Now, if you go down through different pieces of evidence, and if you examine the metadata of that video, actually it links back to a video that was actually filmed at a firing range in Finland. So quite easy to trace it back to the origins, which were not in eastern Ukraine. One further example here, another Russian claim that BTR-70M tanks were being used by Ukraine in transgressing borders and whatnot in such a way that Russia was viewing this as a provocation. Ukraine doesn't use BTR-70M tanks. So you can see there that, again, that they're two pieces of information that are pretty easily disproved. And what Russia is aiming for is quantity over quality misinformation.
Gets the word out there.
Exactly, just to muddy the waters and make things very confusing.
Thank you very much for that, James. James Creedon there with Truth or Fake. More news coming up, but up next, a focus report on the economic crisis underway in Sri Lanka.